Okay, hi everybody, welcome to day 5. This is the final day of the challenge that we're doing this week, Belief Camp. So I hope you have been getting a lot out of it, as much as I have been delivering. When I deliver something like this, I get a lot out of it. But today though, this is the final day, and I want to give you some tools to really dive into cultivating a new kind of expanded belief. But before I start doing that though, let me share a story that I love sharing because this is actually one of the TED Talks that you can actually search. I believe the title of the TED Talk is called Consciousness is the Frontier or something. And the speaker used to go to a medical school and he decided to drop out because as he was going through the school process, he decided that it wasn't for him. And instead, he became a yogi. Yeah. And then the person is having this sort of appearance, yogi appearance, I think all red from top to bottom. And he shared a story on TED Talk about a person looking for a key in the outside of the room, outside of the house, actually. And then the neighbor came close to that person and started asking, okay, what are you doing? And the person says, oh, I lost my key and I'm looking for it, right? And the neighbor started helping looking for the key for that person. And then a little while and they couldn't find the key. And the neighbor asked, oh, where did you lose the key? And the person says, I lost inside of the house. And then the neighbor said, why are you looking for the key that you lost inside of the house, outside of the house? And the person says, oh, because it's dark inside. Yeah. Now, this is an important story because this is how exactly most people are living life. That inside, there's a key for transformation. That inside, there's a key to create the life that we're meant to create. And we're constantly focusing on the outside because the outside physical world, you can see, hear, smell, taste, touch. And when you turn your attention inside of you, it's very dark and you cannot see, even though that is the only place that the key exists. So I want you to take this seriously. How much of the time of the waking moment, your attention is in the outside and the dark inside that has the key is becoming your background. And you're not having an attention to navigate the energy. And most people have this reactionary pattern to the outside, focusing on the outside, feeling frustrated, feeling different emotional dynamics, and sort of spinning the wheel or living the same kind of life month after month, year after year, decades after decades. So let's take a moment to sort of observe and review and reflect your life, right? The moment you wake up, what are you paying attention to? I mean, for most people nowadays, it's their phone, but are you paying attention to the 3D visible world, or are you checking in with the dark inside where the key resides? So this might be a big ask for everybody, right? When the inside is dark, becomes the playground, the real playground that you manipulate and navigate and guide the energetics. And when that place, the inside, becomes the primal place that you are constantly and consciously begin shifting, your outside simply becomes an after effect of the playground. But for most people, the inside is the background. They're focusing on the outside, and also the inside is the background, but more than anything else though, their past is in the background, but it's controlling. That background called past controls their life. And then we form this thing called perception. and then based on the past, present, self that most people are not aware about, nevertheless is controlling their perception, shapes their experience. So the way that we're living is drastically off from the way that we humans are meant to live. Now, what do I mean by we humans are meant to live? We are a creative creature, creative creator. Yeah. So how do we remain as a creative being? By understanding that where that darkness exists inside. And what I mean by darkness is the actual not being able to see in the physical, right? It's not like the inside is filled with darkness. It's actually filled with light. But unless you turn your attention to where it's dark to be able to access the light, you will forever be dragging the dim light that we almost everybody constructed through our upbringing, and your outside life will reflect the dim light. So by turning your attention inside and begin recognizing the light, you can make it brighter and brighter and brighter. So that's just a little introductory story that I want to anchor today before we dive into the last day, to really make all of us realize what are we paying attention to, right? Now, and that is actually the first tool that I want to introduce. Now, the tool that I will be introducing is not this sort of like and I did say magic tools, right? Now, most people might not be aware that they are magic tools. They're actually using all the time, but we are not conscious about it, right? The first tool is called attention. The first tool is called attention, right? Most of us are paying attention to the outside, driven by our past memory. What we want to do is to begin formulating a picture inside and give a full undivided attention to the inside. Now, I'm not saying not to enjoy what we are abundantly be able to experience in the outside. So the shift in the way in which we can grab things that nurture and nourish us needs to be there. For instance, if you come across something that allows you to feel expansive, right? It could be weather, it could be kind words, it could be a visual view that touches your heart, it could be anything, right? Anything that gives you a sense of expansion, we want to absorb those by putting attention. Then, in order to constantly stay in this conscious unfolding space, we want to stay in the energy of the end result. We want to stay in the energy of living and feeling and being in that desire fulfillment, right? So we want to have a clear picture of what kind of life we want to be living, and this is something that we have gone through the inner transformation question. And then to be able to capture and identify what is the kind of belief that you are operating to be able to create that life, because the outside is a reflection of the inside and it begins from the inside. So I want to come back to this attention piece, but let's talk about imagination. I believe it was day 2. I spoke a little bit about the nature and characteristic of the subconscious mind. Yeah. Now, subconscious mind cannot differentiate what you imagine in your mind and then what you see in the physical world. Yeah. In fact, all of the things that we absorb from the outside is being imagined, reflected in the occipital lobe, and then we're formulating in our brain. Yeah. But when you close your eyes, when you picture what you just saw, or what you choose to see, whatever you choose to see, whether it's negative or positive, your brain and your body and your subconscious start experiencing as a direct experience. So we want to use this power to use for us, not against us. Yeah. So the two of the 3 tools, magic tools, are the imagination. You can call this visualization. We're imagining all the time. So we want to be consciously choosing to imagine what makes us feel expansive, what takes us to the desired outcome. And then we want to actually sustain the attention. Sustain the attention. I can't remember who said this, but something that Bob Proctor often said is the richness. I think that the quality of life, right, the type of life that we're living depends on the richness of the imagination, right, and the sustained attention. The richness of the imagination and sustained attention, because everything has polarity in this world. And are you focusing on the lack, or are you focusing on the abundance? And in your imagination, what's beautiful about this thing tool called imagination is that you can create any visual you like. You can create any imagination that you want to imagine. So that means that there's no limit to it, right? There's no limit to it, and we can borrow what you see through other people to begin able to imagine in the screen of the mind. So I want to ask, how many people here who are watching are actually moment to moment conscious about what direction your mind is going to bring your attention to imagine something that allows you to feel expansive or allows you to feel resisting. Yeah. And when people start imagining the worst case scenario or using the imagination against us, because the attention is mostly in the outside. When the attention is mostly in the outside, as I said earlier, the past present memory, which is the background, start controlling your imagination in a default automatic manner, and you start imagining over and over something similar, because that is part of your identity, that is part of your perception, and you're focusing on the outside. Something behind you controls you. Yeah. But then when you start understanding that the physical playground is simply a mirror of my imagination, of my feeling of my imagination. And when I have this feeling long enough, it becomes what I believe to be true in my experience. This is a very simple thing. It's not that complicated, right? So when you start having that awareness and understanding, you start prioritizing, nurturing what your attention, which way your attention is directing towards, and begin becoming hyper disciplined in only taking a mind to imagine what makes you feel expansive. What makes you feel expansive. Yeah. So the two of the three magic tools are the power of your imagination and the power of your sustained attention. Notice that I added sustain. You're not just paying attention to once in a while when you remember it, right? You want to make this as a lifestyle to sustain your attention. Now, let me add another layer to this practice. Yeah. So this transformation of awareness is no different from changing the body. And what I mean by that is that, okay, many of us understand that the food that we put in our mouth is going to directly reflect how we feel in our body and maybe the formation of the physical body, right? I mean, it's not that simple. That has a little complexity in it, depending on the stress level, toxification level, inflammation level. That's another YouTube channel that you can check, right? Now, but the type of food that you eat is going to affect your body, right? The type of movement or exercise that you do is going to affect your body, right? Now, if you really want to dedicate and commit to change, to transform, change the formation of your body, you are going to need to create some dedication and a process and commitment. So what that really means is that eating nutritious food only when you feel like it or once a week, we all know that it's not going to change, right? There needs to be a certain process and consistency in creating a new habitual process and to make that as a lifestyle. So the transformation of the mind, the expansion of the awareness works exactly the same because your body is your subconscious mind. Your intellectual mind and understanding about something is something that anybody can gather. It's called gathering information. So I'm streaming on my Soul Purpose group. People are receiving this video replay through the email. And then some of you might have found this video through the YouTube channel, right? Now, there are all kinds of information via YouTube or books or Google. Everything is one Google, one YouTube, YouTube is a Google search. One YouTube and one book away to gather information, right? But knowing what to eat is not going to change your body. Knowing what exercise, how often you can do is not going to change your body until you begin doing it, right? So we want to have a certain lifestyle and practice. So I wanted to mention this to really help all of us understand the distinction between gathering information and what I call to embody that information. It means that you're going to pay your sustained attention to your words that you use, the thoughts that you think, and the feeling that you're in, and what you're imagining constantly. Now, some people might think that that's a lot of work, right? That's a lot of work because you have not developed the habit of living that way. Like for a lot of people, eating nutritious food by choosing, analyzing at the beginning might be a lot of work, right? Going to a place to move the body to exercise, if you haven't had that lifestyle before, it might be a lot of work. But once that becomes your new norm, it's effortless and it becomes a part of you. It becomes a part of your identity. So focusing on the outside, letting the background memory to control your inner experience is the norm for many people. But my invitation that I have to really master the belief inside of you is to change your focus attention, make the outside blurry, just like a camera, right? And to bring your attention to where you think it's very dark, to begin accessing the key inside of you. And begin monitoring. How do we access the key? By noticing what thoughts you're thinking constantly, by noticing which direction the imagination is leaning towards, noticing the feeling inside of you, and deliberately navigating to where it feels expansive, where it feels flowing. Yeah, depending on where you're at in the stage of these practices, this might sound like a completely new way of living. And that's what I'm inviting every single person to begin contemplating and diving into, because I believe that this is the way to live as a creative being. That's how we're supposed to be living. That's how we humans are designed to live, because we acquire a creative ability that no other animals have. Animals do not need to be paying attention to your thoughts. They just are. And then we are animals, but we are also spiritual beings. We are creative beings. Animals, all the other animals are not creative beings. That's why they live in the survival mechanism, right? If you go to Africa, or if you go to the animal kingdom, it's a different kind of living. But notice that when humans are in the state of fear, the humans also has this animal component, and some humans might be living the animal kingdom, mode. But how can we tap into the spiritual side of us to begin living in a creative mode, honoring the creative nature of what we are gifted? So imagination is the first tool, and sustained attention is the second tool. Let me give you the last tool that is so important, and that is called expectation. What is expectation, right? You are expecting, what are you expecting tomorrow? Are you expecting a similar day? Are you expecting, you're thinking about where to go based on your schedule or what you're planning or how things roll on a weekly basis? And you might be expecting a similar kind of life, right? If you're living with your family and if you have a certain dynamic, you're expecting a similar energy. If you are going to work and if you have people who you enjoy working with, you might have some people who have a little challenge. And when you go there, there is an unconscious expectation of encountering something similar. That is expectation. We also call assumption, assuming the kind of life that we are going to live. Yeah. And observing what you're expecting, you can observe the belief that you're in. Yeah. When you have a desire and when you have a belief, and when the desire and the belief begin merging and getting married, you start creating this feeling called expectation. Yeah. So I want you to check in with what your expectation is. Let's bring your attention to the desire, one thing that you want to see change, which we sort of cover day one, I believe, in the inner transformation practice questions, right? And what you desire is what you're not currently experiencing in the physical world. Now, depending on the expectation of, oh, I expect that that's gonna appear and happens tomorrow, or maybe it might take 2-3 months, right? Notice that where the expectation is gonna tell you the level of belief that you're in about that desire, right? So you want to constantly monitor your level of expectation, which direction, because expectation also has positive polarity and negative polarity, right? Things go wrong, that is a negative polarity expectation. It's not gonna happen is a negative polarity expectation. The attention to the lack is a negative polarity expectation. Yeah. So by examining your expectation in the context of the desire that you have, you can check in with the level of belief that you're in. Yeah. So I offer today 3 magic tools. We want to be able to study our own imagination, number 1. And then we want to be able to really tap into this sustained attention by noticing where we are giving an attention. I'm not saying to pay attention to the physical world. I'm asking to be able to discern what you want to take in and what you want to suspend. And then our attention needs to be in what kind of feeling am I in? Am I in the feeling of my default, or am I in the feeling of the fulfillment of the desire? Because that is what I'm supposed to be manifesting. And then the more clear it becomes what you desire, the more you will be able to tap into the distinct, unique feeling being in that energy. Yeah, many people are not in the feeling because they haven't clarified exactly what they want. Many people have a difficult time being in the feeling because they haven't clearly identified their dream version of life. Either there are too many options, or there is a doubt inside of them that I want this, but I don't know if this is going to happen. Like, it's just a vague, ambiguous place, right? But what if the only thing that we need to cover is to begin identifying and then begin nurturing the belief about it? It's not the other way around. We don't want to go decide or not decide the end result based on our current belief, right? We never want to do that because belief is something that we can cultivate and nurture and expand. So why would you want to do that when you are able to believe whatever you would like to believe by nurturing and cultivating the belief? So first, even though it feels and sounds impossible, we want to identify, if I could do anything in my life, what would I like to have? That is the type of question that we want to ask. We don't want to ask, oh, depending on my circumstance and depending on my current belief, what do I choose to want, right? That's a very limited way of deciding your one life. So if I can change the circumstance by believing, and if I can work on my belief to begin creating, and if anything is possible, what would I like to have in this one life? That is the kind of question that we want to ask. Okay, the inner transformation question. Choose the practice. So the imagination you can use to sit down and visualize, or if you are like me, who is a kinesthetic learner, you can journal, right? And then begin visualizing, or begin using the power of the words to affirm over and over and over. And here's the thing though, I want you to treat this as a nutritious meal. And what I mean by that, it means that if you're not used to living in that place, I highly recommend you to do this 3 times per day. You do your visualization breakfast, and you do your journaling lunch, and you do your affirmation dinner. And if you want a little dessert, you can have something, right? So when you begin treating not different from the nutritious meal, energetically, you start shifting the way in which we treat this, right? Because what if you can change the belief and then everything else change? It's one of the most important things that we can spend our time and then invest our effort in, right? So if you have a thought, oh, my life is busy and I don't have time, I highly suggest you question that thought, because anything that you would like to create is going to be possible by cultivating the belief. And you can cultivate in the belief that you can do anything even though you are so busy, right? Question number 2, decide when, how long you would be practicing, right? So to schedule them. And I'm actually, basically I'm asking you to be accountable for these practices, so you don't end up just kind of watching the YouTube video and see, oh, that's interesting, and gather information and going back to this default state of living outside in, and continue to look for the key in the outside when you lost the key inside. Last question is practice is schedule them and begin implementing, right? So this is something that Stephen Covey said, right? You want to prioritize and schedule your priority instead of prioritizing what's out there, and then you start missing the opportunity to cultivate your feeling. So minimum, I want you to do 3 times per day. And then once you start doing that, being there becomes your new norm. Yeah. So if you have any questions, let me know, comment on either the Soul Purpose Facebook group. You're welcome to email me to ask questions if you're receiving this via email, the replay. If you're watching this through YouTube, you can comment on YouTube. And I want to thank everybody for giving me your attention to dive in. And if you're feeling serious about it and wanting to dedicate, I want to also thank you for having your mind open, because when you begin diving into this kind of work, not, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, but all in, everything is going to change. Now, if you're tuning in through the group and YouTube, you will soon hear from me what would be the next step, right? Because I want to help you to have a protocol and a structure. If you do this on your own, you will be distracted by your default and circumstance. That's the 2 obstacles that I mentioned on day 3 and day 4, right? Contrast and also the past, present, and familiar self. So what I found is that people need an environment and community and container. Because what I often also hear is that not many people around you might be living like this, experiencing the creativeness. Meaning that for most people, the life is in the survival mode because they're not living as a creative being, but they are living as a survival creature. The biology takes over, the animal kingdom conformity takes over because a lot of other people are living that way. So imagine that if there's a platform and people who are dedicated to live creatively by being in that energy. And then when you're surrounded by those people, you automatically begin becoming so because it's a natural tendency for us to conform into our environment. That's a superpower that actually we all have. So it's important to be surrounded by creative beings so we don't get sucked back into the animal kingdom. Yeah. To be able to honor our gift and to be able to really express our gift fully. This is how we started, right? We want to be, the reason that we're doing this is to, for you to have a path and platform to express yourself fully, to shine, so that shininess can help others to shine as well. So you will soon hear and see, if you're watching replay, you might already have that, right? What would be the next step? A place that you can dive into to begin consistently practicing this new way of living so you can nurture your belief to begin creating whatever life that you desire. There's no limit, and you can formulate and paint whatever life that you want to be living. Okay, so comment if you have any question. Let me know any takeaway and something that spoke to you the most. It's important to connect with that energy. So see you very soon and explore everything in the group in the YouTube channel that I am providing.